Cool. So let's start by looking at the agenda. So someone today proposes, I don't remember to be honest, the channel deprecation property. I think it was you, Jonas.
Yeah, it was based on the issue raised in Slack.
Yeah. Yes. Nayan. So Nayan raised the issue.
Yeah, exactly.
So my current thoughts about this is channels can be defined across many files, not just one. So for instance, a channel might be defined in one AsyncAPI file for the producer and another AsyncAPI file for the consumers, and all this stuff. What happens if you deprecate it in one side but not in another? You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, that's true.
but that problem applies to everything, to be honest. Like, what happens if you define some message in one side and another message in another side? So it's not really a problem. But maybe the suggestion here will be that you define your channels in a separate file and just reference them, right? So you always have just a single definition. Aside from that, sorry, go on.
No, it's just one problem with that is that even if you define it in a separate file, you will still have the issue that you can't have the exact same channel. Okay, you kind of can, but like you get a problem with the producer and the consumer, who is what and who does what.
Yeah. So that makes me think again about the structure of the spec itself. Like maybe because when I started this, I copied so much OpenAPI. Maybe it made sense, but now the more I work with this, the more I realize that it can create more problems because of the decentralized nature of the messaging APIs, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to REST APIs or HTTP APIs. So yeah, well, I think we can probably, or we should probably think about it for future major versions, not something that we can probably solve in 2.1 or something like this, because that will require a rewrite of the spec and almost start from scratch with how it is structured, right? Anyway, regarding the deprecation property for channels, I don't see any inconvenience aside from the one that I mentioned, but that again is an inconvenience that is not just with the deprecation; it's with everything inside the channel definition. So it shouldn't make things worse, right? It's just a problem that already exists. It doesn't create a new problem. So yeah, I don't know. Other than that, when you deprecate the channel, you don't. You usually don't deprecate it, and that's it. I mean, you usually offer your teams more information, right? Like, for instance, you can use this channel until this date, or you will be able to connect, but nobody will be producing messages in this channel until a certain date or whatever, right? So instead of true or false, maybe it will contain more information, or it will allow you to put more information aside from true or false, like the date, and if I'm not mistaken, there was there's a similar debate on JSON schema for the deprecated word, for the deprecated keyword. And there's also something that Eric Wilde proposed. I think it's a sunset header for HTTP. Let me. We can probably learn from this about the potential needs that we will have in case we want to deprecate something, right? So sunset, yeah, it's a date. So the sunset header. Let me just share my screen. I think it's going to be easier. So this is the sunset header for HTTP, and this is an example here. So you don't say that something is deprecated. Instead, you say when you're gonna sunset something, right? Like for instance, the date. In this case, the date. And I haven't read this thoroughly. I mean, not thoroughly. I haven't read this yet, but I think this is just a date. So maybe instead of having deprecated, we can have something like sunset, or something like, or deprecated, but it contains a date instead of true or false. Right? What do you think about it?
Yeah, it sounds reasonable.
Yeah, I actually agree. It's more than just a true or false, and I kind of like that. So it might solve other problems as well. Also, with the regards to the deprecation flag or the sunset flag for the channels. What if we add channel trade?
Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, no, I thought about that. I think it was too late in the process, and I didn't add it. But yeah, that makes sense to have like a channel trade. Yeah, yeah. In case you want to have this, like I don't know, you want to apply a trade for 4 channels, right?
Yeah.
With the deprecation notice. That's another thing. The date and the notice, you might want to leave a message there, right?
Yeah.
Like something to say to the teams. Instead of this channel, you should subscribe to this other channel, something like this.
Yeah.
This could be a message, like kind of a human readable message, like a description. Or it can actually be both a message and also another property indicating what's the new channel, if at all. Like where should I consume this information after this is deprecated, right? After this is sunset, actually. So like what's the other channel name that I should be subscribing or that I should be publishing?
Yeah.
So as you can see, it's not as simple as it seems when someone comes and say, hey, why don't we add deprecate, right? Deprecate it. Let's just add it. And for some reason you add true or false, and then you want to add this, a date, a message, something else, and suddenly you have a breaking change. Because a true or false cannot allow anything else. So yeah, so that's why I'm taking this cautiously. Like, let's be cautious, because this can be a problem in the future, right? If we don't design it correctly. So yeah. Anyway, and so I think I'm gonna create the issue so we don't forget about it.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, there was. So you had some concerns, Jonas. Also,
Yeah.
explain while I do this, so you don't have to wait for me.
I can do that. So it's regarding the templates. Like, I'm still working on the Nats client, both for TypeScript and for .NET. And I was wondering, when that gets done and gets merged into the generator, I guess we consider it kind of an official template since it is directly included in the generator.
Yeah.
So it's more like when other people come and use this template, what can they expect quality-wise from these templates? Are the issues being fixed when I create one? Who are the responsible person for it as soon as it's handed off as an official template? Yeah.
So, I can reply this. Like, for instance, in my opinion, if you move the template to the generator repo as a, let's call it official or whatever template, then it's the AsyncAPI team the responsible to maintain it, right? And the way to open issues is well, it's actually the way to communicate issues is actually by opening issues in GitHub, right? So that's what I would think. I think that's how people what people might expect, right? Like, AsyncAPI will be the responsible to handle this. And quality-wise, in the beginning, I don't think people. Well, in the beginning, I don't think we will be able to provide a huge quality, right? But as long as the templates receive more issues and we fix them and all the stuff, quality-wise, it will become better, right, over time. So,
that was also a concern. Like, you have all these kind of scenarios with JSON schemes, like all off, one off, any off, and everything. And
I think,
do they need to be included in the template for it to be accepted in the first place, for example?
Are you considering donating something?
I'm considering adding all of the support for all of them. That's more the reason behind it.
No, I don't think, honestly, at this point in time, I don't think we should be so picky about it. Like, the easiest it is for people to use something, even if it's not perfect, the better. And then if you have something or anyone has some template and it doesn't support all of and one off and all this stuff, that's fine. Actually, I think the only one supporting this is the HTML template and the Markdown template. But the code generators, I don't think they're supporting all off and one off and all this stuff.
Yeah, if it's any help, the templates I'm working on, I'm not supporting those.
Yeah, exactly. So
we could put in rules, in the Java POJOs that I'm generating to sort of say, well, yeah, I mean, this is a required field, but I think that's more trouble than it's worth right now. That kind of level of validation is, it's a refinement we could put in later, but I think just to get things working nicely for people and to have something that people can actually use, I think there's little value to be gained from that kind of very detailed validation. So I've chosen not to bother with those things yet, myself.
Yeah. I think it's easier to start like this. You start with the most common cases. You avoid going so deep into the one-off, all-off, and all the possibilities into the JSON schema. Also, JSON schema also allows if, then, else, and all this stuff, and that's another thing.
Yeah.
So my recommendation is that start with something. It might not be good for everyone, but it might be good for most of the people. So that's a really important thing, right?
One concern I have is that then it's going to be the templates dictating how you should write your async API file. And different template or your async API files will not be, you won't be able to go from, for example, if we have an official Kafka client template, and then go over to using Nets just by one command, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like, I guess, an issue from the user's kind of perspective.
You mean that, for instance, one template supports, for instance, all-off and the other doesn't?
Yeah, for example. And if they already have, I don't know, 20 clients, they're not going to rewrite everything in there because our template doesn't support it, I guess. So it's more like in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the solution to that is to use the bindings, on each channel where you can have protocol-specific extra attributes. So you're saying, well, if I'm using Kafka, then I can add like a consumer group attribute that doesn't make sense with MQQT or something like that. So
yeah, that's
maybe
true.
Maybe that's the way to get around it. I mean, I'm grappling with the same thing, but unfortunately, guys, I have to go to another meeting, so I have to break off now. But it's unfortunate because this is something that I'm having to think a lot about too, just this very issue. So I hope maybe I'll watch the recording later to see if there's any more insights about this. But anyway, see ya. Have a great day.
See ya.
Thanks for being here. Okay. So I think what Michael said is correct, but there's still a problem. And the problem is not with specific protocol, with protocol-specific information. It's more, like you said, for instance, JSON schema stuff that we don't completely support on every template.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think I will not say that it will dictate how you write AsyncAPI. That's probably a lot, but it can happen for sure. Like you know that the templates don't support all-off, for instance, and you try to avoid using all-off.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm trying to think about, or I'm trying to guess in which situations you can decide to avoid using all-off, right? And how you will prevent it. As an example, but
yeah, exactly. I mean, there are workarounds, but if you already have your async API file, a company won't spend the time to convert their documents.
Yeah, and what Robert is saying, that Sultan and template support everything that's in the version of the spec it's templating for. I don't think a valid spec will lead to generated code that's incomplete. That's right. The problem with this is, again, I mean, that's the goal. The end goal is to reach that point, that level of maturity. But to get there, it requires a huge work, right? In each template on top of that, right? I think once we have, for instance, I think that the case of HTML and Markdown, this is sort of solved. with some minor issues, but it's easily solvable. But in the case of code generators, the thing here is that we will have to figure out how to map JSON schema to types, to a class definition, to an object definition, or to whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
There are libraries for that. Specifically, there's this one, QuickType. I don't know if you heard of this, but I'm gonna link it here. QuickType. So I'm gonna link the playground they have. This is so useful to understand what they do. And the thing is that I think they don't publish their library. It's open source, but it's not, I think it's not maintained as a separate library. I think it's in the core of their app, code. So I don't know, we can probably have a chat with them and see if we can help extracting this functionality to a separate library so we don't have to recreate everything again.
You just should have shown this before. I kind of needed this.
Yeah. You haven't seen this?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, yeah. It was, for me, it was like, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Why I haven't seen this before? Yeah, this is amazing. And yeah, and it's a lot of work, as you can see. So yeah, why not taking advantage that it's open source?
Yeah, exactly.
And probably extracting this to a separate library with their permission, or probably them doing it, or I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they are not in the mood to do it. Whatever. If that's the case, we will have to create because it's open source. We will have to create a separate library, and we will have to maintain it ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I can easily, like, if I just copy pasted the scheme in here, the JSON scheme, I could, I mean, all I need is like a general template, and then I can copy paste it, basically.
Yes. Exactly. So that's but that's the cool thing. Like if you have it as a library, you can automate this, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Your template can leverage this library and say, hey, just create a class for this schema, right? And it will create a Java class, or it will create a Go class, or Go.
Oh, they already have a
Go class.
CLI.
Yeah, they have lots of stuff. So, but I'm not sure they are in the mood to maintain them separately. I've seen some issues in the yeah, they have an npm package, but what I've seen in the issues is that they don't maintain. So they don't follow semantic versioning, and they break the API all the time because they're just doing this for their app, and then I don't think it's core to their business to maintain this library as a separate thing. So I don't know. Maybe they changed it. They totally changed their perspective with this regard. And maybe we can just offer our help. Like, hey, we can just help you extract this, so we don't have to do it, right? And we can maintain it. We can co-maintain this, right? I don't know, something like this. And also there's the Swagger products. So for OpenAPI. So Swagger also has a code generator for almost any language, any programming language. So they already do that. But as far as I know, I think it's Java. It's not Node.js. So yeah, the code is there. We will probably have to just translate this, translate this code to Node.js so we can use it on the generator. Yeah. And which is not bad, but it's far from ideal, right? So
yeah,
so
but yeah. So this quick type is actually
this is what we need.
yeah, this is exactly what we need for every language.
Yeah, that's exactly what we need, and we can maintain this. And or if they are in the mood to collaborate, that's fine. If not, we can probably just fork it and maintain our own copy.
Yeah,
Something like this. I don't know. I would prefer not to fork it.
Yeah.
So we can all benefit, right, from this.
Yeah.
Not just ourselves or them, but all together. But yeah, I can understand that maybe it's not their business. So yeah, let me try to find this. I remember seeing like an issue. Yeah, I think it's this one. Let me check. Yeah, I don't know. It's let me check. Let me share this with you. So there's this issue here. Someone asking for this. I mean, they're not exactly asking for this. They're asking for documentation for the QuickType core library. But the thing is that, yeah, I don't know if they are in the mood to do it, really.
Yeah.
Or it seems that, I mean, for a comment that I read here, actually it's been followed up in another issue from sounds of it, we might have to do it ourselves. And then, yeah, and then the guy says again, like, yeah, my problem with using all those undocumented internal library APIs is that they might break without any notice, which is true. I will be concerned as well. Like,
yeah, definitely.
to rely on the library that might break every month or every few weeks. So yeah. Anyway, the opportunity is there for sure.
Yeah.
So just let's just explore this and maybe.
I mean, yeah. I mean, for now you can just use the size, play around with it, find a template that kind of a template of what you want, and then use that.
Yeah. So that's one. And another thing that might be related is the fact that, for instance, so the other day I got mentioned that some people might just want to generate, just want a template to generate Java modules. So they don't want code at all. They just want the class files, right? So I suggested creating another template, which could be just that, just the Java modules, and that's it. But then an alarm triggered in my head, like, hey, then you will have to maintain this template, plus you will have to maintain all the Java templates, and they also behave the same, right? When generating the Java classes. So I wonder if we can probably create something like a dependency system between templates. Maybe it's a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe it's over engineering this, but like having a Java template depend on the module template. So We don't duplicate things.
Yeah.
I
mean, if you do it like that, instead of having something like QuickType in the backend, like it's the same, what's it called? It's the same result either way.
Yeah.
The one thing we just have control over.
Yeah, exactly. So in any case, I mean, if we use QuickType or something similar, then it's perfect. You don't need to worry about it. Just update all the templates to the latest QuickType version, or you make sure that all of them are in the same version, and that's it. That's fine. But yeah, and that also raises the issue of template specific dependencies, right? So for instance, in order for my template to perform this task, which is so complex, I would like to npm install this library, right? Which is not in the in the package JSON initially, right? On the generator package JSON. Yeah. But I need it just for this template, this specific template, and this is already happening, by the way, with a Java template that Michael is working on. So he will need to do some stuff that will be useful just for him for this template. And that makes sense. I mean, this way you don't have to code everything yourself, right? Yeah. You can use other packages. But then we enter that land where, again, templates can have dependencies, specific dependencies. But I think this then, like Robert is saying, what about creating plugins? Then this opens also the door to defining a plugin system, a plugin API, and we sort of have some kind of plugin system, which is the hooks for the templates, kind of. So probably we could use the hooks to npm install some specific dependency, like it will install the libraries before anything is generated. But then I was thinking, then there's a problem. Yeah, I was sorry, too many things in my head. So then there's another problem. The problem is that some people use the templates, even ourselves with a playground, not to generate code in the file system, but to retrieve the result as a string. And we don't want to install anything on the system, right? We don't want to install additional packages. We don't want to run additional commands in the system because we might not have permissions to do these things. So for instance, if you're running the generator in a CI system, you might not have permissions to run npm install there, or things like this, right? So, or imagine, for instance, in the playground, you want to generate specific you want to generate code from a specific from your AsyncAPI file using the playground. You don't want to run a command there, right, on the server, like running npm install and waiting for it to install. Well, in this case, maybe it's a different approach. It can be done in a different approach. Anyway, the thing here is that I'm jumping from too many things to other things. So the thing here to summarize is that there are needs for template dependencies. There are needs for the types generations or classes generation.
Yep.
And And there might be, even and something that I find myself repeating all the time in different templates is that some of the filters or helpers, depends on what you call it. I think it's called filters now.
Filters, yeah.
Yeah, are the same, basically the same. They're repeated in each template. So some of this functionality might be worth extracting to the generator itself, so you don't have to repeat this all the time, and you maintain it on a single place. If you need something totally different, then you create your own filter. That's still possible, but I think what I'm seeing here is that in terms of repeating code, we can still do better, right? Like we're repeating a lot of code, which is fine. I mean, we're still finding our way, and the generator is not even in version 1, and for that reason, because something is gonna break soon, right? Like we're gonna have to break backward compatibility soon, for sure, and that's I'm sure about it. And maybe even templates will become packages on its own, so you can reference them with a URL or with an npm name, or you can npm install a template, something like this. So yeah. So to summarize, I will say that is these 3 things. Like we need to avoid repeating some codes on the filters, generate code, generate types or classes, and also make sure that templates have their own dependencies.
Yeah.
Right. So I think this is food for thought.
Yeah, definitely.
So maybe we can keep chatting on Slack maybe instead of moving everything. I mean, I'm just saying because here we are just the 3 of us. So it will be a little bit.
Also, it's not something that we have to address right at this moment.
Exactly.
As soon as we get more templates into the generator, we can kind of begin to see a pattern. So
what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create some action items or food for thought, right? So we think about it and we can discuss in the channel with more people involved. Also, what day is today? Is 21st. Okay, so I cannot say anything yet, but someone is is joining AsyncAPI full time in February 1st. I'm just respecting his privacy for now. And so yeah, he will be in charge of these things as well. So like, he will be participating on this. So yeah, so maybe this is something that we can keep discussing. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I still think it's something that we don't need or have to address at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, not at the moment, but I think it's worth addressing it soon.
Definitely, yeah.
Before it gets, the problem gets bigger.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's gonna be a bigger pain to migrate to a new system of templates or a new way of doing things. So yeah. Cool. So anything else you want to raise today?
I don't think I have anything else. No.
Let's wait for Robert in case he's typing. He might be receiving the package now.
That might be, yeah.
So yeah. Well, in the meantime, man, good luck with these exams.
Yeah, thanks.
Try not to think so much about AsyncAPI or anything related until you finish.
No, that's also why I haven't done pretty much anything since December.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Just focus on that.
Yeah.
and getting this shit done.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Cool. So I'm gonna stop recording. In the meantime, we can then chat.